Welcome back. Now we talk about Donald Trump's second term. The inauguration took place just hours ago, sweeping executive orders that will affect both America and the rest of the world. And so we're going to look at it in two ways, from the diplomatic end, as well as the issue of trade and bilateral relations. We're going to put all of that together in one box and see how we ensued this conversation. We're being joined on the program by former DG, Nigerian American Chamber of Commerce, Director General, Nigerian Association of Chamber of Commerce, Industries, Mines and Agriculture, NACCIMA, Mr. Shola Obademu joins us right here in our Lagos studio. Welcome, sir, to the program.
Thank you very much.
So there's a lot. So when it comes to Donald Trump, that you're wondering which side to start from. But he made a lot of pronouncements yesterday. I took us to some of the things he said that has to do with social issues, economic issues, issues around governance, issues around energy. When you listen to his speech yesterday, from where you sit and what interests you as far as trade relations is concerned, what were the impressions that you got?
Well, personally, I was impressed by some things. I liked his attitude. You know, when you come into a job with full confidence, you know exactly what you want to achieve. You are deliberate about your intentions, and you state them clearly. I think it's a lot to learn from, particularly from us here in Africa, and particularly Nigeria. People that take on political leadership jobs should also come in with the same enthusiasm, with the same energy, despite the fact that he's about 78, I think. He still came in with such vibrancy, and he was able to convince the people that were there that this is a man that could give them some level of safety. Because, you know, he spoke, he was deliberate about the economy as well as migration, because he has smartly linked that to security. And there is no doubt that any average American will be worried about those two issues. So having somebody to come in that could give you some higher sense of safety and economic prosperity promises is a very good one. And we need to learn from that.
So, there's something he said specifically I want you to start from, exactly, when it comes to our trade relations. I know that, I think from Q3 of 2024, when we had the report of our trade relations, our biggest or second biggest export perhaps was the US. Among our 5 countries we export to, came to about 40%. US took about, let's say about 8% of that. So we have a trade relations. So he said, I will overhaul our trade system to protect American workers and families instead of taxing our citizens to enrich other countries. We will tariff and tax foreign countries to enrich our citizens. We'll establish the External Revenue Service to collect all tariff duties and revenues. I've never heard of External Revenue Service. So I needed you to speak to that bit of his speech.
Well, you know, he spoke about this. He has this slogan, America First. So it is quite understandable that, well, you should think and speak that way. Economy was a problem for Americans, as we all know, before President Trump, you know, before his inauguration, and he needed to address that. Everything he said was to protect America and Americans. And it is upon us to now, you see, somebody like President Trump is not somebody you deal with on a pitiable note. You have to be confident to deal with him. So if you are going to, do better in our trade issues, then we've got to sit down and do a lot of homework and find out how we could also benefit from the trade relationships. All our diplomatic outposts, not just in the US, all over the world, you know, there is a level of espionage going on there. Part of their duties is to feed us back, to feed the home country back on the opportunities that are available that we could tap into to benefit. So I think we just need to do some homework, because right now most of our outflows to US in terms of goods and or products is mainly crude oil. It still stays at crude oil. We try to benefit from AGUA, which again is ending in September this year. It started in 2000. The first leg was for 15 years, which stopped in 2015.
Yeah.
But there was an extension to this year. So we are not sure yet whether that will be further, stretched. But be it as it may, we did not fully, take advantage of the AGOA opportunities. We didn't. There were opportunities for agric products which were being shipped out mainly on the raw note without much being added in terms of value. Then apparels, we did a bit better in apparels and fashion, but we could have done a lot more in terms of dollar figures, which we didn't take due advantage of.
So, with the posturing of Donald Trump, again, which is nothing new, I think if anything, it has since tripled or quadrupled now since the last time we had him as 45th president. Now, the posturing is Make America Great Again, protectionist. This external revenue service, of course, the government is trying to look at ways to see if it's possible, not that it is starting right away. In fact, the feasibility is even another thing entirely. But that kind of posturing, do you think it maybe overestimates the and this is a very tricky one. Do you think it's an overestimation of America's importance on the global scale? Take a look at Nigeria's biggest trade partners. America is not top 3, for example. It's more China, India, and now there's Brics forming. So do you think there's some sort of illusion here, thinking we're the biggest, we're invincible, so the world will always come to us? Do you sense that feeling, or it's in reality? Is that what it is?
It's somewhere in between. Perception is everything. If you live on a street and everybody on that street calls you an armed robber, whether you are an armed robber or not, you are more or less an armed robber. You've got to an adage says charity begins at home. If you don't promote yourself, who will promote you? He has the right about the America's self-importance image that you are talking about. So if he tries to promote or to build up a picture of an omnipresent America, who is going to quarrel with him? And that makes him a good marketer. He knows his product and is marketing it well. And that's why I said initially that it's something we can gain from. I would love to see Nigerian presidents talk like that about Nigeria. Whether it is true at that moment or not, it gives you something to work towards. And I think it's a credit to him and that is what he has sold. And that is why a lot of people, despite whatever impression they had with him 4 or 8 years ago, there has been a turnaround in people's perception of President Trump. And they are all willing to back him up. And on this journey, on this 4-year final journey that he has started.
Well, you know what they always say. They say no man is an island, but in this case, no nation is an island.
Sure.
No matter what, you need others. Yes. I mean, look at China, and I'm not sure if China blows its trumpet as much as America does, but we know
they are doing wonderfully well.
Exactly how much China is doing right now. So, again, do you think this opens? Because you still need investors. Fine. In that room alone, you had up to $1 trillion. You had Jeff Bezos, you had Elon Musk, Zuckerberg, you had Google. So in that room alone, just about 4 to 5 people were almost $1 trillion. But again, do you think this opens America up the more to business, or it sort of shuts them in and people are like, for now, don't approach America. Let us know the direction. Then maybe in a few years' time, we'll approach America.
I think it's attitudinal. America has always been like that anyway.
And still the world goes to America in spite of that.
Yes. China, India, attitudinally they are different. You see China's works more than the speech.
Their words.
Their words, yes. And that has worked very well for them, because by the time, before you know what is happening, China has gone past you. So the attitude is there. But, again, this has been an American way to say a lot which sometimes even compromises their security situation. Merely listening to CNN, you get a lot of maybe too much information. I recall the last incident at New Orleans, and at a point, one of the agents, whether FBI or something, was worried that the journalists, the media guys were asking too many questions that could compromise the work of the security agents. So it's their way. I think we have to give it to them. You are at liberty to promote your whatever you are selling, and it works for them too. But I think there is a need to. I think humility is a virtue in some ways, but again, if that's the way they are, then you deal with them the way they are.
Let's bring in former Nigeria's High Commissioner to Australia and former Director General of NACCIMA, Ambassador Ayola Olukomi, joins us as Ambassador. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much. My name is Ayola Olukomi.
Okay, Olukomi.
And it's nice to see my dear brother, the current Director General of NACCIMA.
Yeah.
And as a former DG NACCIMA, I want to say thank you to him for the good work he's doing.
All right, so
thank you very much for this invitation.
Fantastic one. I'm sure that we'll continue that conversation a lot more. But let's talk about Trump for a moment. And one of the things I want you to speak to, my colleague Kaida has spoken about it has to do with America's posturing. Trump has now said, and this has to do with diplomacy, he said he wants to be seen as a unifier, a peacemaker. I want you to speak to that element of him, given his boisterous personality and sometimes his, how do you call it now, the word people use, I'm trying to remember, unpredictability of the personality of Trump. I've seen Trump joke around things like nuclear warheads, and he's saying he wants to be a unifier and a peacemaker. Because that is important given what is going on in the Gaza Strip as well as the rest of the world.
Thank you very much for that question. It's a privilege to be here. First, let me say that the second coming of President Donald Trump is a major point, historic landmark in the history of the United States, and also, of course, implicitly in the history of the world as well. And this is the existential reality we all have to deal with. Directly to the question which you ask, I think the world needs so much peace at this particular period. And if President Donald Trump can swing it, then definitely this is going to be, a big plus for him. Definitely. Look at what is going on in Ukraine, the genocide in Gaza. We need an end to all of this. But, like late Mario Cuomo said, I'm very fond of his statement, that you campaign in poetry, but you govern in prose. And watching President Donald Trump yesterday speak, it was like he was still campaigning in poetry. I will end the wars. I will bring peace to the world. But what are the details that are involved? The nitty-gritty of it. This is what, of course, we have to deal with. I happen to have served twice in New York at the UN. Then I also served in Tel Aviv in Israel. So I'm not talking theory. I'm talking about the question of the practical dimension to it. If he can swing the end of the war in Gaza, it will be a major history, because the implication of that crisis in Gaza talks about the Middle East, and the question of peace in the Middle East is very important for the entire world as a whole. So if we can do it, that would be great. But like I said, a lot, and he has to work closely with the United Nations in terms of each and every one of those crises which he said he wants to end. But we wait and see what happens, at the end of the day. He tied up the ceasefire in Gaza to his coming in. How far that is true, we don't know, because I know, and I'm sure, you're very much aware of the work and the role of the Norwegians and other stakeholders as far as the peace in Middle East, especially in Gaza itself, is concerned. But if you can do it, if you can do that miracle, that would be one of the most greatest miracles the world needs at this particular period.
It's quite interesting. Well, he's big on religion, so maybe he can just pull off some sort of miracle at this time.
No, let me correct that quickly. President Trump is not good. He's not. No, he's not big on religion. Let us leave that discussion for another day in terms of the question and issues of what people do with religion in the area of politics. If you want to win votes, we know what happens in Nigeria. Let us leave that.
Well,
but the most important thing, like you said, is the question and issues of can he do it? Will he be able to do it? But if he wants to do it, he has to do it with other stakeholders who have major role to play in the Middle East. That is it. Of course, the question on issues of immigration, I'm sure those are some of the things which you had sent to me, what's going to happen, the war implication for Nigeria. And I did not hear him mention Africa in the entire speech. I did not hear him mention Africa. The only way you can say implicitly say he's mentioning Africa has to do with the question of every terrorist will be pursued all across the place. And of course, we know what is happening in the Sahel, and we do know that the US has presence in the Sahel in terms of fight against terrorists in that particular. But that's, honestly speaking, Africa has better just pull his jackpot up. And I think I heard Ogikiolu to Kauri talking about the question and issues of $1 trillion. There's some big people in there. Let us just forget those big people. Nigeria can do it. I served in the foreign service for 35 years. I serve as DG NACCIMA, and I know the potential, just like the potential, huge potential. Let us come back home and do it ourselves. And unfortunately, Trump administration came in yesterday. No ambassador in Washington, no ambassador in the UK, no ambassador in the Permission in New York, no ambassador in France, no ambassador in Russia. How do we want to engage the Trump administration without an ambassador on ground in Washington? That's the question I would like to ask you.
Quite a number of issues you've raised regarding religion. Well, it's saying one thing then acting another light, but you know that the inauguration yesterday was big on religion. Even his words, how he talked about God saving him from the assassination attempt, saying his administration will not forget our God. I'm quoting his words. So as he has spoken a lot about religion, but again, we've seen how he's been a bit murky when it comes to that.
Kauri, I'm sorry to jump in.
Oh, dear.
Please go and read Jesus and John Wayne. Jesus and John Wayne. I'll send you the details later on.
Right.
How a group of evangelicals corrupted the nations and corrupted their faith and factionalized the state, the nation. Jesus and John Wayne. Please go and read it. A channel's television interview is not the time and place to discuss all those things. Please go and read Jesus and John Wayne. It talks about how evangelicals, corrupted their faith and fractured the nations. But let's leave that. God is important in all of this.
Certainly.
I sincerely hope that God in America is a beautiful documentary to go and see.
All right.
How the God factor in the White House, and how, of course, it affected the perception of most American presidents.
Well, Ambassador, I don't want us to go down this road, and I think it's a very interesting conversation which you have raised. Maybe another time we can speak to it. But the question I was going to ask, really, and by the way, I'm going to be reading that. Thank you for the recommendation. But the question I was going to ask is about the Africa bit and Nigeria. Some have said President Tinubu should avoid a confrontation with him. Others said, well, of course, will he be confronting Donald Trump? We have bigger fish to fry. But when you said Nigeria can do it, a lot of people watched the inauguration, the build-up, and they were saying Nigeria should learn. So maybe we should, I wouldn't say draw lessons, but look at our situation and see how we can ourselves save ourselves, because clearly he didn't mention Africa, and nobody's coming to save us except us. So what is in this inauguration, the 47th president, for Nigeria to maybe learn or look inwards, as you said?
Well, maybe the first thing, of course, as a diplomat, the entire arrangement, the protocol, the inaugurations, everything was pim, proper. That's one thing I think we should learn in the area of protocols, as far as that inauguration. But now to the serious issue which you raised in terms of, what we can learn as Nigeria. If you cast our mind back to when Prime Minister Balewa went to the United States, way back in the beginning of our nation, I think 62, 63, thereabout, you will see how much Nigeria was revered and how much was talked about Nigeria in terms of the potentials of our country. That is key. That is very, very important at the end of the day. And when you talk about the question of the human resources and other things like that, the greatest resources you can have is human resources. It's not even your oil. I serve as High Commissioner in Australia. In Western Australia, Perth alone, there are 100 Nigerian doctors. And I'm not talking about young doctors. 100 Nigerian doctors. That is talking about human resources. One, we should prioritize that. Then secondly, the question of education is key and very important. That is key and very important. I went to the Great Ife and I knew what happened then. Then thirdly, the question of our natural resources too as well is also key and very important in terms of what we have. If you look at the agricultural sector, DG Obadimu is there. I also served as DG NACCIMA and I know the potentials in terms of the question of the agricultural sector. Let us move down to the subnational levels. The respective states can do it. We don't have to. The respective states can do it in terms of the potentials. We were involved in the AFCTA. It was acknowledged that without Nigeria, the AFCTA cannot function. So that is another. Then finally, the solid minerals development side, this sector. I heard you mention Elon Musk. You've talked about the question of lithium, the electric vehicles, and things like that. Nigeria is key. Nigeria is important. We must develop the solid mineral sector. If you put all of this together, people will be coming and begging to come and be part and parcel of it. I served 4 years in Israel, in Tel Aviv. And you know the question they asked me? They asked me, when they come back, they say, Ayo, who is the owner of all those places in your country, the forest, which is not cultivated? I'm sure what I'm talking about is quite implicit in what I'm saying. So don't let us look at, say, foreign investors are the only one that can. Yes, it is good. Everybody needs it these days, but it is not for nothing that you find a lot of people across the world coming, and the Americans, of course, are also coming. The aviation sector. Look at the Nigerian aviation sector. Duopoly, Airbus, and Boeing. Boeing is talking to Nigeria to try and see how they can help to develop it. Okay. So that is what I'm saying is that home.
All right, Ambassador. Just a moment. As we begin to wind down, we're going to come back to you in just a moment to speak on the issue of Brics. Let's bring it to our Lagos studio. I would like you to talk about what we have been repeating literally, but in a different direction, which has to do with
the issue of posturing that we talked about. And one thing that is clear, whichever president comes into power, an American president, there's a clarity in terms of ideology. We don't have that here, unfortunately. Politics here is not run by ideology. So you see some of his statements that were, in terms of governance and social issues, everybody know that is what the Republicans stand for. Today, yesterday, and tomorrow. And you can also say that about the Democrats. For instance, I've always said that there's a clear difference in terms of the posturing of Muhammadu Buhari and Bola Tinubu. Muhammadu Buhari seemed to be a bit of a welfarist in his approach. Clearly, President Tinubu is going in the direction of capitalism. I want you to look at how our posturing is affecting development at the end of the day. I use these two gentlemen, these two leaders, because they're in the same political party, and in terms of those posturing, they are clearly in opposite direction.
Okay, I think you are talking more or less about leadership here.
Yes.
Leadership qualities. And like I said at the beginning of the program, we need leaders that are more self-assured, who has clear goals in mind, and leaders who can communicate clearly to the followership their intentions. And, it makes it easier for us to even evaluate them on the job. and in case you want to, maybe after a time you want to come back and have a rerun, so it will be easier for people to judge you. But then, local circumstances are clearly different. You know, if you saw the rally on the eve of the inauguration, the way it went, no loud music, nobody was distributing face caps, you know, people came to listen. So fundamentally, it's different. Rallies here, people, what do they come for? They come to collect freebies and souvenirs and so on, and even cash at times.
Yeah.
So our circumstances are clearly different. So we are a bit yet to develop. In fact, people who could listen and ask questions to intellectual discussions don't usually come out to our rallies here, which you know, for fears of possibilities of violence and so on. So we need to grow a bit into a more civil environment, which only prosperity to some level can, give us. If people are not comfortable, if there is a lot of if people are more impoverished, it puts a question on their ability to even choose their own leaders. They cannot choose objectively. So these are the issues. And you don't really, our politicians here, do they even come to campaign on issues-based things? No. They come to dance, and then there'll be somebody by the side to distribute the souvenirs. So it's a different thing entirely.
Okay. I just wanted to land on Ambassador as we wind down, and then this question is about Brics, naturally, rather. So Nigeria is very chummy with Brics. An announcement has been made, so it's obvious where Nigeria is. Even though Nigeria has tried as much as possible to play here and there, say we're not aligning, we just want the interests of our nation. And Trump, sort of reiterated his threat towards Brics nations on Monday, stating that countries that are part of this organization would face 100% tariffs on trade with the U.S. if they continue their de-dollarization effort. I don't know. Are we caught in crossfire right now? Was that a good decision to make, Ambassador?
I think what I would just say that, there is a term in Australia where they say, bring it on. I'm sure quietly behind the doors, that's what the members of the Brics will be responding to President Trump. Bring it on. Because every country also has reciprocity in the field of international relations. That's the issue. Reciprocity is the issue. So definitely, I don't think there is a Trump. I don't think there's a threat in terms of. I'm not surprised it is coming, but of course, look at the Brics. You're not talking about small little nations, huge. And the emergence of the Brics is an indication of the new direction as far as international relations is going, and international economic relations, not just international relations. So definitely, I think the Brics are even up to it. You can't threaten anybody at this day and time. Absolutely. Sorry to go back to Gaza. President Netanyahu say every Hamas member is dead. October 7th. Look at the number of days now. So in terms of the Brics is coming up as a major factor in international economic relations. Take it. But they have their own rules. That's why the question and issues of what I refer to as the invitation to be a partner comes in. Because you have to fulfill some conditions before you become a member of the Brics. As far as the day, that is what will happen. Nigeria has been invited as a partner. So let's see what we do with that. But before we go again, a new Trump administration is in town. The current administration must and should quickly put in the process of appointing ambassadors. We need a substantive ambassador in Washington to be able to engage the Trump administration, so that some ordinary tragic affairs interim will not be asked to go to the Nigerian desk. So when our ambassador wants to see this new Secretary of State, it will become a truly Nigerian ambassador, fully accredited with plenipotentiary powers to the United States of America. That is my summary and recommendation.
We must thank you so much. We must thank you so much, Ambassador Yola Olukoni, former Nigeria's and High Commissioner to Australia, former Director General of NACCIMA, joining us via Zoom. Also, Mr. Ashala Abadimu, former DG of Nigeria, America Chamber of Commerce, and the DG, Nigeria, that's NACCIMA this time, because of time. Thank you so much, sirs, for coming on the program. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your perspective. This is an ongoing conversation, and we hope that when we get these ambassadors, we'll invite you again to speak to the issues we'll be raising with the United States and the rest of the world. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll bring you more on the program. Join us again.